I had a bit go. I got a sponsor banner down here. Where's that sponsor banner? Okay, right there. It's not showing up. Let me do a little some. So where's settings? Okay. Thing looks to be done. It'll probably show up eventually. But anyways, I want to say thank you to our recent follower on Twitch. There we go. It worked. The Flatliner 7269. Make sure you follow me on Twitch to be featured in the upcoming video, or YouTube. I do YouTube as well. But anyways, let's get right into it. This right here is 10 new AA games you'll regret overlooking. So let's get right into it.
AA games often don't get as big as AAA games. That's just how it works. And that means you may end up missing some really good ones. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on Game Ranks, 10 AA games you shouldn't have skipped. Starting off with number 10, it's Evil West, which was developed by Flying Hog Games, the guys behind the actually pretty good Shadow Warrior reboot games. Evil West may be the most generic title of all time. I don't know what it is with the word West in game titles, but there's Weird West, Hard West, Blood West. What's with all the Wests? I'm fairly certain I didn't mention all of them here. The name isn't doing this one any favors, though, but the game itself, solid as hell. The story's nothing to write home about. It's kind of your bog standard. It's the Wild West, but there's vampires. Like exactly what you imagine that to be, that's what it is. Also, it takes a little while for the combat to really click, but once you've got a lot of powers and your weapons are unlocked, this game is absolutely nuts. It basically plays like if you combine the God of War reboot games with Doom Eternal.
Enter, stranger, but take heed of what awaits the sin of greed. For those who take but do not earn must pay most dearly in their turn. So if you seek beneath that...
How it works.
Which sounds ridiculous, but once you get into the flow, that's what it feels like, and it's really good. There's some really awesome boss fights that get mixed up in here, too. It's a slow start for sure, drip feeding you new pieces of equipment while you explore the frankly kind of dull Wild West locations. But this is one of those games that gets a lot better as it keeps going. You get your money's worth with this one, too. Unlike Shadow Warrior 3, which is pretty short, they made sure the campaign here was fairly lengthy, and the drip feed of new equipment and enemies never stops until the end. It's not a game I'd recommend at full price necessarily, but if you can get it on discount, it is a fun trip, and it's also on Game Pass. Just remember it does get better as it goes along. The first few hours are a little slow. At number 9 is Outcast: A New Beginning. This old school throwback feels like something from the early 2010s with a 2024 coat of paint. For some people, that's enough to start running away screaming, but for a lot of people with some nostalgia for that period of gaming, or hell, the original Outcast from 1999, I think there's a lot to like with this game. It's an unabashedly traditional open world game with your standard map covered in icons, but the non-linear structure is what I appreciate. Combat's fairly basic. The activities you can do in the open world aren't always that exciting, but the world design is impressively vast, and as you unlock new traversal powers, things get a lot more interesting. Being able to rocket around these environments at high speeds is so much fun. It is easily the highlight of the game, and any side quest that encourages movement powers, they're the best ones. Anyone who's burnt out on open world games, stay far away from this one because, I mean, I laid it right out there for you. It is a traditional open world game in a lot of respects. But if you still find some wonder exploring strange alien worlds in a low stakes but fairly polished package, you may like this one. The story's goofy as hell.
Here you are. There's something wrong with your comm link.
I turned it off.
You did? What? What are you doing?
We took this from them. I'm sure they'd want their relics back. We could use it to parlay.
You know we don't have the clearance to do that. I came looking for you. Your father wants to see us at HQ.
There's a bunch of alien jargon and a silly relationship drama to sit through. Dialogue segments, though, are pretty short, at least. Now, if the main character's clever quips are charmingly lame or just embarrassingly cheesy, I'll let you decide, but still. And number 8 is The Thaumaturge.
Cool
This
Star Wars
story-heavy investigation RPG has one of the most intriguing and unusual settings I've seen in a game. It's set in an alternate universe, 1905 Warsaw, and you play as a guy with the power to summon persona. I mean, salutors, which they're little freaky demonic creatures that you use during the game's JRPG-inspired combat. I didn't say persona for no reason there. It's a pretty weird game, though. Your guys summoning these demonic entities to fight mostly regular guys with, like, sticks and stuff, but it's a more grounded take on your usual JRPG tropes, and the game is all the more interesting because of it. This is one of those games that you pretty much immediately know if you'll be into it or not based on seeing it, but I'll say that as somebody who is curious, likes that type of game, the game ended up surprising me. It's way better and more polished than you expect. And number 7 is Trine 5, A Clockwork Conspiracy. The Trine series has always been solid, but this newest entry really pushes the series to the next level of quality. Normally, I wouldn't put a side-scroller on a list like this because, I don't know, these types of games don't typically lean AA, I'd more say indie, but the production quality in this game is so good, I feel it like it counts. After the disappointing and only half-finished third game, developer Frozen Byte came back and better than ever with game number 4, The Nightmare Prince, and I figured they'd stop there, but in 2023, they released the 5th entry to the series and managed to surpass their already stellar work with A Clockwork Conspiracy, a game that manages to blow everything previously unseen in the series out of the water in quality and ambition.
I have some unfinished business.
So many ads, but I digress.
This is still mostly the same Trine that you're used to. You got 3 characters, they all have their own abilities, but this entry mixes things up with a lot better pacing and even more interesting puzzles. The combat has never been the strongest part of the series, but Trine 5 probably has the best fighting and bosses in the series by a long shot. Game's absolutely beautiful too. It's like this for the entire game, and the places you go only get more interesting and creative as it goes along. You'd think they'd be running out of juice at this point in the series, but they just keep getting better. And number 6 is Banishers, Ghosts of New Eden. This one just came out, and we've already done a Before You Buy on it, so I'm not going to talk about it too much. But the latest game from Don't Nod is another solid entry in the God of War reboot-like genre. Set in the colony of New Eden in an early colonial America, you play as Banisher, a guy responsible for exorcising ghosts. The bulk of the game is spent investigating hauntings, talking to people, and piecing together mysteries, which are all pretty universally satisfying and interesting to explore. This is one of those games that really relies on the quality of the writing, and for the most part, the game succeeds in telling an emotional story. What surprised me about it was just how much more there was to it, though. There's a lot of exploration, side quests, and combat in this game, and while the combat isn't as tight as God of War, it's pretty entertaining once you get your head around it.
Hold fire! That fellow's not dead! I said hold your fire!
It's pretty much the same. Always seems different.
It's a sort of spiritual successor to Vampire, which is another solid AA from Don't Nod that deserves a second look. This Banishers game manages to expand on a lot of ideas from that game while retaining a unique identity. It's never quite as polished or as well-paced as the games it's partly imitating, but it's another game I ended up being pretty pleasantly surprised by. And number 5 is Shadow Gambit, The Cursed Crew. With Studio Mimimi, the makers of this game and other tactical games like Shadow Tactics and Desperados 3 shutting down, it's a fair time to give Shadow Gambit some positive attention. Their latest game never got the sales or attention their previous games did for whatever reason, but it's absolutely up there with some of the best tactical strategy games of all time. If you've ever played Shadow Tactics, you basically know what to expect here. A small group of unique characters has their own special skills, giant map full of enemies, whole lot of careful sneaking. That's the formula.
Time freeze.
Your soul is free. Enjoy.
What makes Shadow Gambit different from the previous entries is just how non-linear it is, though. You can recruit your crew in whatever order you want, and because you're not locked in regarding what character you bring to a mission, missions can be wildly different. It opens up your tactical options considerably, and in general, you get a lot more leeway on how you can progress in missions. Generally, your abilities are more overpowered and fun to use as well, which definitely helps Shadow Gambit out a lot, but it's also just a kind of more forgiving and fun game overall.
Really? He didn't see what they did. Crazy.
And number 4 is my time at Sandrock. If you've played Stardew Valley, it's basically that, but more. Well, okay, you can't beat Stardew in the amount of stuff it has now with all the updates, but it's very much in the shadow of Stardew, but still manages to carve out its own unique niche in the farm life sim genre. The game is absolutely massive. It is packed with content. It's full of amusing and likable characters. It has an expansive story that can easily take around 80 hours to finish. It's a game that kind of skirts between a AA and an indie, but it's big and complex, and I feel like it fits. Plus, it's fully 3D and can look really pretty at times. The twist here is that instead of growing stuff on a farm, your main source of income is building things. That's from buildings to tools to weapons to everyday items. The basic gameplay loop's simple. There's just so much that you can do that the game always stays entertaining. The low point is the combat. It's just not polished or exciting, but as a way to break things up, I am glad it's there.
Come on, let me
Phillips presents Crown
That's
Jewels.
what's up.
Je suis tranquille
I'm
chez
gonna see what I want to eat today.
If there was no fighting, I don't know that we would be in for all of the insane plot twists that happen 50 hours into the game. Yes, this is a farming game with huge game-changing twists. You heard me, twists, as in plural, with an S at the end of the word. Twists. There are more than one, and they are very entertaining. In what way exactly you will take them, I don't know, but they're a lot. I mean, at least for a farm game. At number 3 is Chorus. This is a really weird one with an impenetrable story and a kind of dull protagonist, but it's a game I still have a lot of respect for. It's a combination of a sci-fi space shooter and an RPG with everything that entails. Space is split into large zones. You can go to spaceports, you can buy weapons, find NPCs, ships, do side quests, or explore and fight enemies. Combat is arcadey and fun. I like me some good arcadey combat.
Focus.
There's some interesting abilities to keep things from getting stale as well. There's even dungeons, like there's space dungeons. There's a lot of space games with RPG elements, but this is more like an RPG with space elements. It somehow works with you never actually leaving your ship. The devs put in a ton of work making each section of this game feel unique. You're not just jetting around boring empty starfields, and that goes a long way to keep this game interesting. It's not for everyone, but if you like more arcadey space games like Freelancer or Everspace, but want something that's a little more of a traditional RPG, then this game may work for you. At number 2 is Kenna, Bridge of Spirits. A kid-friendly Souls-like sounds like a terrible idea on paper, but Kenna is actually one of the better games in the subgenre. It's not easy, especially when you're taking on some of the bosses, but it's also not punishingly hard, at least not most of the time. It's more of a hybrid game anyways. There's Souls-like combat, but the exploration is pure platform.
I know this game. That's that girl from...
Probably the most unique thing about the game is the Pikmin-like rot spirits. These cute little guys that you can command to help you in battle, and can also be used to control parts of the environment for puzzle solving. It's a fun game overall with some really fantastic animation and visual design. There's a lot of games that people say look like a cartoon come to life, but man, this game really does look like that, especially in the cutscenes, which are still quite impressive even now. It's definitely an odd game because it looks like it's something meant for kids, but the difficulty can be pretty punishing. If you can get past that, though, there's a lot of positives here. And finally, at number 1 is Metal Hellsinger. This FPS game hybrid has a killer look, a fantastic soundtrack, and it is a hell of a lot of fun. The whole shooting to the rhythm thing sounds like it might be awkward or frustrating, but the timing's pretty forgiving, like at least enough that it works, and it can be extremely satisfying when you get the hang of it. It took me a while to be completely clear. The game starts off easy enough, though. You have to rely on one weapon, so it's easy to keep everything to the beat. But as you progress and unlock new weapons and tools, and newer, more aggressive enemies start appearing, it gets quite a bit trickier. New elements are spread out enough to keep things from being overwhelming, though. The only downside I give to the game is that the environments do start to get a little samey. There is variety, but it's all within the confines of your generic hellscapes, so the places do kind of start to run together after a while. Other than that, this game is an absolutely excellent experience. I mean, assuming you have tolerance for rhythm games. Some tolerance. It doesn't have to be a lot, because there's a lot more going on than simply rhythm here. You can even just play the game and ignore all the combo stuff, but it's better if you actually engage with the mechanics. That's what make it, special, different, unique in any way, shape, or form. And that's all for today. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week.
What's it called? Payback? That might be what it's called, Payback 2. Or, something. I don't know. Anyways,